Hello, so I have a new video for you today. It is called Can I Just Work on What I Want to, Please? Um, so my main question as an indie maker who wants to make money online is should I work on what I like or what my audience likes? This is something I come up against over and over and over again, and I usually end up siding with what I like. But it really matters a lot to me that I think about this because I haven't made a lot of money online and I really want to. So I think this question is important to keep coming back to. So the question is, why can't I just work on what I like? And the answer, simple answer is you can. I've done it for the past 12 years, 10 or 12 years, and I've created a lot of side projects. This is just a small list of them from my website, but I probably have at least 30 other projects that are either defunct or out there somewhere. I've had a few pretty successful ones highlighted in black here. Some of them get attention, some of them get pretty viral, get like 20,000 views over a couple of days. Most of them, kind of do okay. I've had a few products go viral on Product Hunt, a few go viral on Hacker News, but none of them end up making much money. And the main thing is, it feels like there's no direction. I haven't committed to anything profitable. I've mostly committed to things that I feel strongly about, but that other people don't understand or don't understand the value of, and so they're not willing to pay a ton of money for. And even if I convince some people, a lot of them just are like, yeah, I'm not going to pay. So 10 years ago, my thought was the biggest problem I have is sticking to a single project long term. So if I can solve that, I can be successful. All I have to do is trust my gut, stick with a project, and eventually the market will come around and see the value of what I've done because I understand it from my own passion in it. And then they'll understand it, and then we'll be massively successful after that amount of time. Um, and it turns out it doesn't really matter if you stick with something if you don't talk about it, right? So you're not telling anyone about it. You don't find your target market, right? So like if you're not talking to the right people, if you build like a platform for artists, but you're not talking to artists, then it's a misery. It's absolute, and it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Or if your target market doesn't need it. So either they can't pay for it, they have something else that they use, or it's not a problem that they actually think they have. So the way I've been kind of directing myself is kind of inward motivation to like the outside, right? So I'll focus all on that inner passion, all on that inner drive. And it really helps keep me motivated, but and it keeps me like working long term. And I like work nights and weekends, and I work for like 10 or 12 hours a day, and I really build these like pretty complex systems that I think are really beautiful and that I believe in. But it doesn't consider the other side of the equation, which is what people see from the outside looking in. So it's not just like me who matters in the equation of making a business, obviously, right? You also need people to consider, hey, is this worth buying? So it's kind of like building a house, but building it out in the middle of nowhere where people don't know where to look or how to find it or even which road it's on. And it's beautiful on the inside, right? You've designed it really nicely on the inside, but it doesn't look appealing from the outside. No one talks about it. You don't talk about it yourself. Like I haven't talked about a lot of the things I've done and why it's so beautiful on the inside. And it's not that useful, right? I've designed it mostly for myself based on my own opinions and instincts. So it might not be generally useful, and it's not designed for a particular person or taste. It might not even be that functional, and it's not designed with a pressing need in mind. So, for example, taking the example of a house again, you might build that house next to a place where a lot of people work, and the people who work there would find a pressing need to want to live in that house so that they can get to work easily, right? Like just step out the door and walk to work. But if I build my house out in the middle of nowhere and, there's no pressing need, right? And so that's the problem with not finding a market first. So if it was designed with other people in mind, I would have built it where people hang out. I would have made it look nice from the outside. I would have designed it like other houses so it's familiar, right? And so that it makes sense to people. And I would have considered the type of people who might want to live there. Building houses for, that is products, right? Because we're really extending the metaphor a little bit too much of products. It's a lot of work. So what the heck am I doing? Spending all of this time on something I'm passionate about when it amounts to nothing in the end, right? I mean, this is like 10 years of my life where all I have to show for it is 30 projects that I'm kind of passionate about still, but they haven't really gotten an uptake from people. And, they're not really that useful because, I mean, like some people are using them, but like they're not paying for them. I'm not developing them anymore. It's just kind of a really sad place to be where I feel like I've spent 10 years kind of doing nothing. But the thing that really bothers me is that passion and curiosity and fun don't have to be disconnected from value. There's tons of examples of companies who have started from people playing around and experimenting. For example, there's a brilliant game called Stardew Valley that the developer worked on for, I don't know, it was like 6 or 8 years. And he worked on it on his own. He made his own music. He learned how to program. He learned how to make a game, and it was based on a game that he really enjoyed, so it was based on his personal passion and drive. And I think he wanted to bring that experience to other people, which is very similar to how I feel about the products I build. There was the original Apple computer where Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak worked on that, and Steve Wozniak was, a tinkerer and experimenter and was having a lot of fun with that. And so he learned a lot about technology, but then he was able to bring that and that insane amount of value of like knowing all the ins and outs of technology to the hobbyist market of personal computers, which was just starting at that point. And I think a lot of even Steve Jobs' motivation, at first was kind of like a hobbyist, passionate, thing. I don't think he could have guessed that Apple would have been a multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar company, right? At that point. Maybe he did, right? And maybe even the person designing Stardew Valley knew that it was going to be super successful, right? But again, I feel the same way about my projects where I'm like, yes, I think this could be a gigantic company. And then there's Google, right, where it was a university project, a research project, and they did a lot of experimentation and a lot of playing around, and they didn't even try to like monetize it for a very long time. And so I feel like, sure, maybe all of these people wanted to make money, right? But they also really deeply cared about the thing that they were building, and they just seemed to be experimenting and having a lot of fun. Was their motivation really like finding the right target market and doing customer research until you find a problem worth solving? Like all of these people on Twitter keep telling me of like, oh, just research your market and they're going to tell you what the real problem is. It just feels so soulless, right? And I think when you go to those successful companies, the really mega successful ones, or even just like the semi successful ones, I think it's a lot of them are pretty self directed. They personally wanted something really badly. So they built it up from scratch and they made it work no matter what. And what I mean is like they built a functional product, but they also found the audience and they got the audience and they said, this is a good thing and I really believe in this and you should try it. And they tried that again and again and again until people started to really get it. Which brings me back to the biggest problem is sticking to a single project long term. Because if I have that passion and I really care about a problem and I really care about solving it and I stick to it long term, then eventually wouldn't you think that maybe the market would realize how good it is and that it actually does solve a problem that they need, and then I can kind of keep working with the market until they get it. So the method that, that kind of requires, in my opinion, is you find something that you personally need to solve. It's something that's deep within you that you're just like, I can't even think of anything else. This is the thing I really want to solve. I really care about it very deeply. And you dig into yourself and you figure out why you really want to solve that thing and why it really matters to you and why it could be like a really revolutionary big thing that would help the world, right? And then you work on it for as long as it takes to be good enough and to gain some initial traction. And then you wait for the right time to evolve. So you wait for the market to catch up while also doing everything you can to help the market realize what an innovation you've created. And that, I think, leads to massive success. I mean, this is just my opinion, right? Based on seeing other people's successes and reading about it and watching movies about it. I think that a lot of the time it's playing around with something until you find something that you're super passionate about. And then you just stick with it as it starts to gain traction and become like a snowball. And then you see it kind of gather steam and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it really comes down to, in my opinion, again, timing, dedication, and the right idea. And I think you can kind of feel that right idea in your core, in your heart. I think so. I mean, this is again just an opinion, but I also think, yeah, sure. Um, even the creator of Stardew Valley was basing that on another game, and that other game was mega successful. So, it was established market. The Apple computer, like maybe they just kind of saw the burgeoning personal computer market and how passionate the hobbyists were. And so that passion from the hobbyists informed them. And then I think with Google, right, the internet was so new and there was no really good way to search it. And so they just kind of saw that this idea was going to be inevitable, right, that people were going to want a really good search engine. So yeah, I think there's other forces, and you definitely want to look at the outside um, and the market. But anyways, the reason why I really like this approach more than just a market research based approach is that I want to create long term generational wealth. I want to create a company that outlives me, that I can pass on to my family or pass on to someone else who can keep it going because it's a good force in the world. It's something that is creating continuous value and creating continuous luck for other people, right? It's like giving other people opportunities to create value and wealth in their own lives. And I want to actively participate in the world long term, right? I don't want to just make $1 billion and retire. I would love to have $1 billion, but I also want to actively be participating in the world and contributing back to it in a good and positive way, and also just like interacting with it, right? Like interacting with other companies and interacting with different I don't know, missions or marketplaces or people or ideas or creative endeavors, right? And really trying to combine something into something that works and is beautiful, right? Because I think that's one of the best things about being a person, right? Being a human being. And most importantly, I want to trust my instincts and my desires as being connected to the world in a meaningful way, right? If I have this deep feeling of passion in an idea, I don't want to just think that that's just some random noise, right? Some random thing that's happening to me that's not connected to the world around me, right? Because I think, honestly, and this is, I think, my biggest like secret, but like that I believe, but I think the mega successful people know that you need to trust yourself because there's nothing else, right? You either trust yourself or you trust the external world. And if you trust the external world, all you're doing is just trusting other people to guide you, right? So you have to trust yourself at the end of the day. And I'm not saying don't trust the outside world too, to some extent. But I think when it really comes down to it, if you have a drive, if you have an instinct, you have to realize on some level that that's coming from somewhere real, right? You've had experiences, you've had jobs, you've had bosses, you've had, participation in a wider marketplace where you've purchased things. You know the world instinctively. And if you instinctively feel like the world really needs something, it probably does, right? And I don't know. Anyway, so I think that's probably what mega successful people know more than the rest of us is that their instincts matter. Okay, but this doesn't mean that you can ignore the world, you can ignore your audience or finances, right? You need feedback and buy-in. Even the original Apple computer had the hobbyist market who were really passionate about it, right? You need to understand the market. You need to talk to people, and I need to support myself and my family. So I need a job and I need something that makes money. So, what to do? every time I come back to this question of like, okay, do I trust myself or do I trust the market or who do I research? I go back to this semi weird thought, which is just be an animal. This might sound weird at first, but animals like us, right? Human beings are animals. They learn by doing, they don't have excuses, and they try to survive no matter what. And they're just out in, uh, an environment and they're adapting to that environment in real time and always just trying new things. And if it doesn't work multiple times, they're just not going to try that thing again, just naturally, right? They don't have to think about it a ton. They don't have to like, go on these, safaris in their head about, oh, maybe this force is working against me and that force, no. They just naturally approach the world and do what they think is necessary and then move on to the next stage. So sometimes I forget that I'm an animal, that I'm always learning in the background despite my best efforts not to, right? I might try to like hold a thought in my head and convince my body that it's true, by just repeating it over and over again, being like, oh, I love this idea. I just have to do this idea no matter what. And like force my body to do that. But it knows the truth, right? If I keep doing something that's wrong, it's going to send me signals of fear or anxiety or stress that's telling me something, right? That's telling me something's off. So if I just keep putting myself out there and trusting my body and my mind to work in collaboration while also, doing the best to make sense of things myself, I feel like things will eventually work out, right? Um, it's what people and animals have been doing for millions of years, just evolving, right? Just learning from their environment. Um, I actually really love this picture. um, but yeah, just like developing and growing naturally, right? By taking in what's in your environment and using that to get to the next stage or the next step. And that's not something where I, I don't think you have to like understand it logically necessarily. You can do your best to understand it naturally, but even if you just keep putting yourself out there, you're gonna learn from situations and eventually you're gonna come to the right conclusion or to the right place in the world just by continually putting yourself out there. That's my theory, at least. So it requires collaboration between you and your environment. It's not just one overruling the other. So this brings me back to, what do I do? Do I do what I like or do I do what my audience likes? And I think the answer is, or my answer is, that you don't do either. Or rather, you do both, right? You are an animal in an environment. So of course you're going to follow your own instincts, but you're also going to pay attention to your environment and to the behaviors of the animals and the people around you, right? In order to adapt your behavior. So this is an adaptation. It's a learning process, and every step, every stage is a continual learning process and a balance between yourself and your environment. So every time I go down this path where I think, oh, should I do one or the other? Should I do one or the other? I always come to this: trust the moment, do your best to let go into it, and surrender. Things will work out. And so that's all I've got. I know it might be a little weird and like not climactic, but I think it's just really important to look at where you are in the moment and trust where you are in the moment and trust your instincts because they are based on real things, right? Um, I've been working in the tech industry for 15 years. I think my body knows things about the tech industry and my mind knows things about the tech industry that like someone who's just starting out doesn't know. And I've seen it develop in different ways and I've seen history repeat itself. And I think if I really like let go into where I am right now, I can just kind of learn and adapt and evolve. And I think that's really the only way to build a business, is to constantly be adapting and constantly be learning and constantly be growing. And yeah, so that's all I've got. I hope this is helpful to you. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at in my life and kind of the next steps to take. So hopefully this is valuable to you. Okay, talk to you guys later. Bye.